Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's Bree. Sorry guys, I'm coming with a late recap. I have been under the weather, so I couldn't really talk, but I'm all better now and we're going to get right into this reunion special part 2 because of course I am here to discuss Ready to Love, Make a Move, episode 13, the reunion special part 2. So we're going to get right into it, guys. All right, y'all, let's get into it. So we start this episode off with Charisse, still saying that she can't do this while she's attempting to walk off stage because, her and Ashley got into it the other week. So, eventually Charisse calms down and she sits down and, Tanika just says to the ladies, y'all just need to relax. Everybody just take a breather. So they do. So Vernisha turns to Charisse and she says, Vernisha says that, Charisse has been through a lot growing up and she always feels the need to defend herself even when it's not warranted. So Tamika, the matchmaker, she says, none of these girls said anything bad about you, Charisse, and you know how much we love you. And I think that's what it is. I just think it's sibling rivalry. So, Charisse understands and she's like, okay, I can receive that. So anyway, guys, this is where the fun stuff start coming in, right? Okay, so next, Ashley's former dates, Don, who was her keeper, and then Kirsten, the guy she dated on the show, they're both on stage with her and they're all sitting down. So... So Kirsten's face looks so irritated, like he did not want to be there, y'all. And sorry, I keep laughing. I was just laughing because of his facial expression. It was hilarious. And also, too, who else joined them was Don's friend, Lakeisha. You remember the girl that Ashley got into it with? Well, she was actually there as well. So, Tanika asks everyone, how are they doing? And Ashley and Lakeisha say that they're good, and so does Don. So, of course, they do a flashback of Ashley's time in New Orleans dating Don and Kirsten. And so they, review all of that, and we go back in time. So anyway, after the flashback is done, Ashley explains why she chose Don in the beginning of the process, and she said it was because she always chose the player in the past, but Don looked like the nice guy, and she just wanted to give it a shot. So Tanika, the host, she asked Don, do you understand why she dropped you that first time? And so he says, I believe it was miscommunication. So Tanika turns to Kirsten, and she asked him, what was, this experience like, with Sparkplug Ashley? So he says, no, it was okay. So Tanika says, well, can you expound on that? So Kirsten says, I have nothing else to add. So I start laughing because looking at his face, you can tell he was not in the mood to be there. And my thing is, I really don't understand why he's upset. And if he didn't want to be there, why did you even come? I just didn't get it. So Tanika, the host, she asked Ashley, she says, why is he answering like that? And Ashley says, well, I'm not sure. I haven't spoken to him and there's no bad blood between us. So I don't even know why he feels a certain way. But, I had a good time with him. The thing with me is I just didn't want to repeat my past. So as they're talking, Kirsten is just sitting there. He's still not saying anything. So Tamika, the matchmaker, she says to Kirsten, you're coming off as being defensive. And he says, I'm not being defensive. I just don't have anything to say. So then he says, I'm just here because I signed a contract. I was like, this man is a trip. He's talking about, I'm only here because I signed a contract. So I'm guessing maybe in their contracts, certain people had to attend the reunion. So I don't know. So anyway, so Tanika, the host, says, Well, Kirsten, there's really no point if you're not going to say anything. So if you want to leave, you can. So Kirsten says, if it pleases the crowd, I will gladly leave. So after he says that, y'all, he walks off stage, didn't say bye, nothing. He just has this attitude. So the cameras follow him backstage, and Kirsten is, I think, talking to one of the producers. And he just keeps telling the producers, I have nothing to say. And the producer's like, well, what's going on? Why don't you, want to talk? Why aren't you, associating or, talking to the people? And he's just like, I don't have anything to say. So meanwhile, back on stage, Tanika says to Don, she says, when Lakeisha had words with Ashley, you were quiet. And why? So Don says, well, I was stuck between a rock and a hard place. So as Don is talking, Lakeisha interjects and she says, well, this version of Ashley that I'm seeing right now, I like. And if I would have saw this introduction of Ashley, I would have been team Ashley and Don. So then Ashley says, you asked questions and you were so combative in your questions that I didn't need to respond. So again, y'all, these two kind of start going back and forth with each other, kind of getting heated again. And so Don says, well, I was quiet because I was hearing things from Ashley that I'm not a fan of. So they're asking him, okay, well, what is it that Ashley said? So he says, she was saying like, you're here for me and, you better be here for me, things like that. So Don explains how Ashley's tone can be and, how she comes off controlling. So he says, if I respond to Ashley, she is now like double teaming her, and he didn't want to do that, and he just sat still. So basically, Don was saying the argument that ensued between her and Lakeisha, he didn't want to interject because he didn't want Ashley to feel as though he and Lakeisha were double teaming her. So that's one of the reasons why he just stayed quiet during that argument. So Tanika says, is that the moment when everything changed for you? And Don says, yes. So Ashley lets everyone know that right now they're friends, and if anything comes after, she will let all of us know. And so I already knew that was going to happen. Like I said in the prior, recap with the finale, I don't think she should have chosen Don. I just don't think that was a good decision. And I can tell nothing's even there. So anyway, y'all. We jump to a new scene, and now we see Charisse's two dates who she dated throughout the show, which are Maurice and Mizell. So, of course, they all do a flashback of Charisse's time with both the men on the show. And so after the flashback, Tanika, the host, asks, where are, he and Charisse now? And, has he been to Miami? So they both say, not yet, but we find out that Maurice and Charisse went to Essence Fest, I guess over the summer together, and Charisse said they had a good time. So that's a good thing to know, they got together to hang out. So Tamika, the matchmaker, asks, do you feel like you found love? And they both reply, yes. And so everybody's just like, ooh, yes. And they're all clapping for them. And I could tell people were happy for them.
I know that's right. I know that's right.
So that's interesting to know, with Charisse and Maurice. So Charisse says, maybe I'm not going back to Miami. And so everybody is shocked and excited. They're like, oh, okay. So who knows, guys? Maybe she's going to stay in New Orleans to be with Maurice. So Tanika, the host, she's like, hey, Mizell. And Tanika starts talking about the whole Vernisha situation. So as you guys know, he was trying to kick it to Vernisha on the low without Charisse knowing. Basically, Vernisha blew up his spot and told Charisse, and Charisse just didn't want to have anything to do with him. So Vernisha went on a date with Mizell, and he basically told her, I'm really trying to talk to Charisse, not really you. Basically trying to downplay the whole situation. So that's what Tanika is talking about. That's what she brings up. So Vernisha says, well, he texted me first, and then he calls me after that. So Tanika says, Mizell, do you see how that was a problem? And so he starts laughing, right? And so he says, I see how that was a problem, but the initial contact was truly innocent. So Vernisha starts getting mad at him, y'all. And she's like saying, well, he showed me interest. So Tanika, the host, she says to Sharice, at the time, it seems you were hurt by that. And Sharice says, well, I was shocked and I just wish he could have been honest. So Mizell says, Mizell apologizes and he says that he wished he would have gotten to know her, talking about Sharice. So Sharice spills some tea saying that, she says this to Mizell, she's like, you're the oldest out of all your brothers and you're not married. And there were so many red flags. So how can I be hurt over a man like that? Because I knew he was a player. So what I tell y'all a few episodes back, Mizell's a player. So that's interesting to know. He's the oldest out of all his brothers and he's not married. I don't know if he's ever been married, but I guess Sharice was trying to say, like, basically, you just a player, and you too old to be playing. So anyway, we jump to a new scene and we see Vernisha's former dates, Jabari and Tabari, arrive on stage. And of course, they do a flashback of her time with them. So afterwards, Tanika says to Vernisha, do you have any regrets being next to Jabari and Tabari? So she's like, no, I don't. And Vernisha's body language during that time, you could tell like she was annoyed, sitting next to Tabari mostly, because that's who she was sitting next to. And you could just tell it was just kind of off. So anyway, Vernisha says that she and Jabari had great chemistry. The communication was to the extreme with FaceTime calls, and they did hang out outside of the show. And she says she thinks the problem came when it came to their lifestyles because he works for the government and he's very traditional and very routine. And she also says, well, my lifestyle is not traditional or routine at all. So Jabari explains that he believes in roles and duties that a woman has in the home and, how the woman has to cater to her man, even when she's wearing like so many hats, and, all that stuff. So Tanika, the host, says to Jabari, do you think you could have bent on some of those traditional roles for yourself? So he says, I would have to be in a situation and see. So Tamika, the matchmaker, says, when the right one comes along, you will bend. And then Jabari says, I'm not just going to bend. And I believe a man is the head of the household and you just don't bend to a woman's will. Now pause, y'all, because I want to talk about this real quick because that's very interesting what Jabari was saying, right? So this is what I'm talking about when people don't fully know what that means and how God really designed the order of family to be. So people turn it to what they want it to be instead of knowing what God truly means by that. So I did some research about it, of course, and I wanted to know, of course, biblically what that truly means. Of course, we have an idea in our head, and of course, we go to scripture, but biblically speaking, what does it mean when God says that? So I'm just giving y'all a little rundown. So a head takes responsibility. So as Jabari was saying, head of the household, right? So the person that's head of the household, they take responsibility. When God handed out roles for the family, he placed the heaviest burden on the man. Headship may sound like superiority until we actually read God's expectations of it. So the head of a household is responsible before God for the spiritual and emotional well-being of the family. So for instance, in the Bible, God judged Eli for not restraining his wicked sons. Eli knew about their evil actions but did nothing about it. So God held Eli responsible as the head of the household. And also, too, we do know they're single parent households. Maybe grandparents are raising, grandkids. So it's things like that. Whoever is in charge of the house, that's who God gives the head of the household. So, for instance, a head receives 51% of the vote. So anyway, two people will not agree on everything, right? So no matter how closely aligned they are, When there is a standoff, who gets the deciding vote? So God has decreed that it should be the head of the household, which is, most likely in cases the husband, if he's present. So, of course, a wise head will consult his wife. Heads do not know everything, and even though they carry the weight of responsibility for the decisions, it is smart for them to seek counsel and advice from the woman he has pledged his life to, meaning the husband. And if she's a godly woman, she will share her studied opinion, but then she'll just let her husband bear the weight of the decision on his own. So that's kind of like what I was, doing my research and biblically speaking, because everybody talks out of turn about what the head is, especially man, when they really don't understand the context of what God was saying and the order of the family. And it doesn't mean you step on top of her, on top of the woman. Think about it. Eve came from Adam's rib, which is his side, right? She sticks by his side. She wasn't created under his feet. She was created from his rib, which is on his side. So they walk side by side. They're a team. So I just had to throw that out there because Jabari was, trying to say something about head of the household when he doesn't really understand what it means. And also, too, I got that information from gotquestions.org, head of the household.html. So in case y'all want to check it out. So anyway, back to Ready to Love, right? So, as I was saying, Jabari truly doesn't know the true meaning of God's family headship role. And I think he's just getting confused by what the world says it is instead of thinking who really is the one that created man, woman, and marriage. So anyway, Vernisha says, it's not going to work between us because of who he is and how he's just set in his ways. So we find out that Jabari is now seeing someone, he has a girlfriend, and everybody congratulates him. So Tanika, the host, says to Tabari, the way that you and Vernisha ended, it seemed like you were shocked. So Tabari says, yeah, I was shocked, and it feels a little bit of character berating. And just because you decide not to continue on romantically doesn't mean you fall out. So Vernisha says, I don't feel like he fell off guard because I've said it so many times in begging someone to talk to me. And I don't understand the shock factor because nothing changed. So Tabari says, well, communication works both ways. And her body language was never inviting. So Vernisha says, well, in order for me to open up physically with you, I have to feel like you want me. So Vernisha turns to Tabari and she's like, was I not communicating with you? And he's like, no, you didn't. So her and Tabari are kind of going back and forth with their little argument. And, Vernisha lets everyone know that she and Tabari, they don't even talk anymore and everything is good or whatever. So in a new scene, we see Ashley's friend Stormy and Zadia's friend Camille on stage sitting next to them. Because if you know, in the prior episodes, those two came out to help their friends, kind of make a decision on the guys that they were dating. So, of course, we see a flashback scene of what happened when the ladies, their friends, came into town. So after the flashback, Camille says, Zadia wasn't listening to what Cam was saying. And I was like, thank you, Camille, for saying that, because Zadia just refused to believe anything Cam was trying to tell her about. Basically, I work too much and I ain't trying to be with you. And so even Camille got it right. So Tanika, the host, asked Camille, why do you think Zadia was not listening to all of your advice? So Camille responds saying, did y'all see what y'all were bringing in? And so Tanika's like, yeah, because he was cute, right? And Camille was like, yeah, that's why Zadia wasn't listening to me. So Camille says, we're going to make sure we select a man whose actions are aligning with his words. So then we jump over to Ashley and Stormy, and Stormy says, they bring up the whole how Stormy was dressed on Ashley's date. And so Stormy says, this is how I dress and I can't apologize for that. Maybe next time I'll just go out in some sweats. So Ashley says, I wouldn't show up to my friend's birthday in a glitter dress because I have respect. And it's just I really felt like I wasn't a part of the date, friend, and I invited you there to help me, and I didn't get any help. So Ashley says, I feel like you left me out and it hurt my feelings. And of course, I agree with Ashley because it did come off like that. So Stormy says, well, we talked afterwards, so I didn't, see that you had an issue because you didn't express that at all. So Ashley turns to her and she's like, girl, I'm talkative. And if I'm sitting back like this, and she's like leaning back, not talking to you as a friend, you should know something's not right with me. So Zadia interjects and she says to Ashley, Ashley, when you feel like someone has offended you or someone may have done something to you maliciously, speak on it. And you can't not say something to someone like 2 months later. So Stormy says, now it looks like I'm a home wrecker. And, everybody's like, no, it's not looking like that. So Stormy gets teary-eyed, y'all, and she walks off stage mad. So Ashley runs after her and she's saying, I wasn't trying to make you cry. I don't want you to feel like I'm doing anything to hurt you, but I wanted you to understand where I was coming from in that moment. So y'all, they talk it out and they work it out and they both go back on stage and they let everybody know they're good. So here's what y'all been waiting for. So next, Cameron has joined the ladies on stage. And of course, we see a flashback of Zadia and Cameron dating on the show. So after the flashback, Tanika, the host, asks them both, where are we now? And Cameron says, well, I have let work get the best. Sorry, y'all. Because if I hear this work excuse one more time.
I know you don't, but let me tell you, I got to be like a thief in the night in this house every time I want to get some privacy to do my work.
Anyway, so Cam says, I have let work get the best of me, I guess. So Tanika says, well, did you go to DC? And he says, no. He says, I thought I was coming into the process to find love, and I really want somebody to go along this journey with me. And just me wanting that is not enough. And, you really need to build a space with the woman that you want to bring into your life. So Tanika asks Zadia, how are you feeling? So Zadia says, during this process, I asked the question, like, do you want to continue? And when I asked that question, he continuously told me yes, and I trusted his yes. Okay, but pause, Zadia. Okay, the Joker was fronting, and we all have senses, right? You knew that Cam wasn't sure. He was just giving you lip service. So you saying you trusted his yes, but his actions weren't aligning, and he kept telling you, I am too busy. So even if he is telling you yes, you knew deep down inside that old boy wasn't into it. So anyway, so Cam says, he wanted to try his best and he tried. Then he says, I could have been gone. And so Zadia says the only time communication happened is when I reached out to you. Now, see, y'all, I didn't know that. See, now this makes it even worse, Zadia, because I didn't know that you kept hitting him up all the time, mostly, because that's what basically you're saying. So anyway, all the signs were there. Anyway, so Zadia says, it would have been nice if you thought about me during the day. So Vernisha interjects and she says, look, I have 3 kids and several businesses, and we make time for the person we want to make space for. And that's the hurtful part, because I had to watch her go through this. So Cameron says, I think she's a dope person, and I actually have a gift for her. So I'm like, is this guy serious right now? And honestly, that's not right, because he keeps reeling Zadia in, leading her on, knowing that he doesn't want to be with her. And so now all of a sudden you got a gift. I don't understand. You don't want her. Why are you doing things to kind of keep her there? Well, guys do that, period. But that's not right. And we're too old for this. So anyway, he gets up from the stage. He gets some gift from in back of, I guess, the couch. And we learn that the gift that he gave her is a photograph of her in a frame. Now, I ain't gonna lie, it was a nice picture. He definitely has skills when it comes to photography, but it was a nice picture. So Tanika, the host, she asked Zadia, is this mixed messages? So Cam says, it's not fake. And Zadia says, is it? So Cam says, you sitting here telling me how I should have been in the past, and it felt like a relief when we stopped the whole process, and dang, like, I don't have to keep doing all of this stuff.
And that's just how it felt.
Really?
She's explaining it to you.
Yeah, I'm just saying really.
And so I was like, ladies and gentlemen, what did I tell you about him? It all came out. He just told her it was a relief when the process was over, and he ain't got to keep doing this stuff. What did I tell y'all? So anyway, Zadia's like, oh, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Not me. Certainly not I.
So Zadia says, we got to pause. It felt like a relief when I left. And she's like, I would have really loved for you to have expressed this a lot sooner than now. And after constantly inquiring on where you stood, finding out I'm not your person and that you just didn't want to choose me is hurtful. So Tanika says to Cam, are you dating anybody? And he says, I'm super single and I'm just too busy. So he says, I've changed and I grew from the situation, and I know now what I need to do to foster a relationship like being in it with you. And I want to make it work, and maybe it will click. And for me, with the distance, it just didn't click like that. So he says, I need to hire people for my back office, but I'm here with you right now and we need to wrap this up.
Wow, son. Wow. That's crazy, yo.
Yo, when he said that, I was like, what? Like, I think with Cameron, I think when he gets to talking, he gets to talking. And I think he doesn't realize some of the things that he says is hurtful. I don't think he actually means to hurt the person, but basically what's coming out of his mouth is how he really feels. And honestly, you're just going to have to tell it. So once he says that, y'all, everybody is shocked. And Zadia says, well, you know what? You can stop doing me a favor and head on out. So she basically telling him, you got to go. So Cam throwing it more in her face. Cam hugs her, and of course she doesn't hug him back. So I knew Cam was low-key not feeling her. I have been saying this for so many episodes, and I just think that was very wrong, what he did. Giving her this picture, trying to like reel her in even more, then saying, oh, I'm just so happy the process is over, and can we wrap this up? It's like, you don't have to take digs, that's just me. So anyway, he walks off stage. So Tanika says to Zadia, I'm sorry, but just know when a man says the timing's weird, know what that's code for. It isn't working. Because a man will use time to say, I want to spend extra energy. So I'm not going to lie, y'all. I felt bad for Zadia. She looked so embarrassed, and you could definitely tell she was hurt. I just hope this is a lesson learned for her, because he played her out, and to be, especially on national TV, nobody wants to go through that. And so, of course, Zadia is mad, and she throws Cam's picture on the floor. She's like, child, I don't have nothing to do with him. So next, in a new scene, we see that Maurice and Don are back on stage. And Tanika says to Ashley and Don, is the door still open? And Ashley says, at the end of the day, we're both adults and single. And what's the worst that could happen? So they start playing around, y'all. So Tanika, the host, asks Charisse and Maurice, how do they see the future? And Charisse says, well, traveling back and forth between Miami and New Orleans. And so Maurice says, our chemistry was good and the attraction was there. We just needed to work on the subtle differences. So Ashley, her and Don are playing around. They walked off stage and they're back on stage. And so Tamika says, the matchmaker, she's like, guys, I have one more surprise. And so everybody's face is like, wait, what? And Vernisha is looking like, do not play with me. And so then Tamika says, I'm just kidding. And so everybody's laughing. They're like, girl, don't be playing like that. So Tamika gives her final words to the ladies. She says, Ashley, I'm most proud of you and you're able to put yourself first. And that was your journey. For you, Zadia, you were just open. You came in a little closed, but you were so open, and I loved seeing you grow in that way. Bernicia, you just don't settle and picking yourself. And then she says, Charisse, that list, let it go. You let it go, and now look at you. You found love. So you guys taught me stuff, and I hope, I have taught you stuff, and I'm so proud of you all. And so, guys, everybody's like, yay, they got through this season. They're all cool with each other. And of course, that is where the episode ends. And scene. So, yeah, y'all, I'm going to give the reunion special part 2. I'll give it an 8. I thought it was good. I already knew Cam was, full of it. I felt bad for Zadia because that is very embarrassing to go through that in front of everybody. Bernicia is just like, I ain't here for it when her dates came on stage. Ashley and Don, I just think they're just better off as friends. And as far as Charisse, I do pray her Maurice that it's, a real relationship and that, they can grow and, maybe we'll see what happens in the future with them. But overall, let me give a rating of what this season entailed. So for the overall season, the spinoff, I'm going to give it an 8. I don't think it was like, oh my gosh, this was so good. No, but there were some good episodes in there. And so I enjoyed it. I enjoyed recapping it for you guys, and I hope you guys enjoyed it too. So yes, y'all, thank you guys so much for tuning in to another recap of mine. Thank you for hanging in there, for waiting patiently for this. As again, I was under the weather, but I'm back and I missed you guys. I missed doing these recaps. And also, too, I will be recapping the new season of the dating show, Ready to Love. I don't know what city they're in. I guess we'll find out on Friday. But, of course, stay tuned to that because I'm going to do that. And, yeah, you guys make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you can be informed whenever I upload a new video. Also, too, comment below. Tell me your overall thoughts on this episode. Tell me your thoughts overall, period, on the entire series. Did you like the spinoff series? Do you think they'll actually do a season 2? I do feel like they will, probably with 4 new other girls, but maybe they may do it where they have 4 new guys from previous seasons and they actually are going on dates every week. So they may do men next. So that would be interesting. I would like to see that. So anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Of course, I will be back with another recap. And as always, I'd love to say a prayer over you. And so here it goes. So may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face towards you and give you his peace and protection. This is my prayer over your life. In Jesus' name, amen. Take care, everyone. I'll see you in the next recap. And yeah, bye.